Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us today, taking time out of your busy schedule to join our webinar, Ask an Auditor, How to Always Be Audit Ready. We are so glad you are here. Before we start, a quick housekeeping item. Please feel free to submit questions through the Q&A chat. We will have plenty of time at the end of the presentation to answer your questions. Let's start with a few quick introductions. Joining us today is Crystal Sliva. She is a QA auditor from Intertech, and Kendra Hoy. She is a senior quality assurance internal auditor at Sierra Nevada Corporation. And I'm Jennifer Bianchini on the product marketing team at ETQ. Here is a quick look at our agenda, and let's dive in, shall we? So I'd like to start things off with a poll question. How do you define a quality audit? Is it A, processes ensuring compliance with a customer and federal regulations? Or is it B, matters that contribute to the likelihood that the auditor will obtain assurance that the report is free of material misstatement and deficiencies are addressed? Or is it C, a formal examination of an organization's or individual's accounts or financial situation? Or maybe you're still trying to figure out what is a quality audit, or is it something else? None of these options are correct. I'll give you just a few seconds to think about your response. Well, if you've selected A, B, or C, you aren't incorrect. Each one is true. A quality audit can have different meanings depending on what your organization does, what department you support, or your role. And if you're still trying to figure out what a quality audit is, that is okay. Hopefully you will learn something new from this webinar. So with so many different responses that can be the correct answer, we went to the experts. And here's a definition of an audit as listed in the ISO guidelines for auditing management systems. Systematic, independent, and documented processes for obtaining audit evidence, records, statements of fact, or other information which are relevant and verifiable, and evaluating it objectively to determine the extent to which the audit criteria, a set of policies, procedures, or requirements are fulfilled. Whew, that's a mouthful, and you may have had this reaction when first reading that. So let's break this down so you can always be audit ready. So here are some challenges we've heard from our customers that can arise during the audit process, issues they have experienced over time. The first being they have multiple systems that have duplicate pieces of information or inconsistent information. How do you know which information is correct? Also, how do you take that information that is in a file system or a SharePoint folder and move it to a centralized system so it is accessible to the people who need to access it? And then there is a time it takes to prepare for an audit. You know an audit's coming up, but how do you find all of the information that you need? How do you even know all of the information that you're going to need? And what is that auditor going to ask for? Then there are your suppliers. How do you have visibility into your suppliers so that you can get the information you need to address any audit questions? And finally, some folks might do things one way and another team does it another. How can you ensure consistent quality if processes are not aligned? So there are a lot of different challenges that can come up during a quality audit, and these are just a few. I'm sure everyone here on this webinar can talk to some of the challenges they have experienced while doing an audit and preparing for one. But it doesn't need to be that way. A quality management system provides the place for audits to happen and be audit ready. We did a research project a little bit back ago, and with our customers, so we asked them to take a look at the value of a quality management system. Part of that was specifically looking at the value they saw when it came to audit management. And what we heard from them was they really saw the value when it came to reducing the risk of noncompliance and where they saved time spent on planning and executing the audits. Also, supporting external audits because our customers do a lot of audits with their suppliers. It also helped them to reduce the number of audit findings, including when they were being audited by external organizations such as regulatory agencies like the FDA or OSHA. And it reduced the number of CAPAs, which is very important. So, when we took a look at quantifying what all of this means, as part of our research project with our customers, we saw that the time spent planning and reporting on audits, they experienced a 20% drop. And when it came to supporting the external audits, they saw a 50% reduction. And then for the number of audit findings, our customers saw that number go down as well by 50%. So this is all pretty significant. And this leads to improved productivity. Your teams aren't just there to support audit activities, but they can focus on more strategic activities throughout the organization. So now I'd like to turn it over to Crystal from Intertech, where she will share with you how they are always audit ready. Crystal?
Hey everyone. Thank you for having me today. So I just want to start off with a little overview about what Intertech and our location here in White House, New Jersey. So we've been serving our clients for over 30 years, located in White House, New Jersey. It's Central Jersey for those of you familiar. Our footprint here is about 30,000 square feet. And we are an FDA registered facility, and we are CGMP compliant. We manage DEA license schedules 1 through 5 and do an in-depth analytical testing in a range of materials. These serving domestic and foreign clients currently, ethical, innovator, and generic pharmaceutical companies, contract manufacturers, virtual pharmaceuticals, biotech companies, chemical companies, and med device. And a little bit about myself. So I'm currently the ETQ system administrator here. I've been with Intertech for over 20 years and close to 20 in quality assurance specifically. I do a lot of the administrative oversight in the following processes for our site. So our quality management systems, training, document management, suppliers, audits, controlled substances, and equipment management, besides being the system administrator for ETQ. This is my third system that we have fully validated, which is the IQ, OQ, PQ, installation qualification, operation qualification, and performance qualification system for QA, which is a requirement in the regulatory space. And the administrator for previous document management systems. I've created document retention system here, and I am our database administrator. So I wear many hats like most of us do. So we receive a lot of audits, and it's important for us to have ourselves always ready for our customers to come in the door, as well as regulatory bodies. So there's a lot of preparations to ensure that we have our compliance and that we are present and ready in a timely manner. So that includes our quality management system, our doc control system, and training management, which we utilize ETQ to house all of those items and bring them through during an inspection. So when an audit is scheduled, we'll notify staff and begin preparing for our inspection. We like to make sure that all of our staff are aware that we'll have clients in for inspection or regulatory bodies. We'll review the agenda and make sure that we have all agenda items ready. We'll prep our audit portal, which we've constructed with the ETQ pushing into that portal that allows our clients to have access to documents without direct access into ETQ using ETQ's API. Currently, we have the doc control system pushing into there, and we'll review our previous observations and action items that need updating or actions in ETQ, such as through the CAPA management system. And then we review any related quality management items related to the customer or regulator, going through the deviations, investigations, change controls, customer complaints, review the client's recent work in the last 2 years, and then place it in the portal as well. And then we'll review training records for staff that may have performed work for the customer using the training management module. So preparing for an audit is all about being prepared, being organized, and being transparent, and being audit ready every time. ETQ allows us to keep all of our quality monitoring centralized, visible, and connected. Thank you so much for allowing me to present, and I'll hand it over to Kendra.
Thank you, Crystal. My name is Kendra Hoy, and I am currently a Senior Process Quality Internal Auditor for Sierra Nevada Corporation. Our headquarters are in Sparks, Nevada, but we have over 33 offices throughout the US. SNC is a trusted global leader in the aerospace and national security. We have innovative solutions in many different arenas, as you can see: ISR, cyber, electronic spectrum management, and other capabilities for national security and the warfighter. We are a next generation prime at the optimum intersection of commercial, defense, and non-traditional contractors. We are privately owned by Aaron and Fadi Osman. And part of our mission is to always stay one step ahead, working on solutions to solve the problems for tomorrow. I have over 20 years of audit experience in different arenas. I've worked for a big four audit firm, auditing for software to the contract. I've done some SOX auditing, and currently I'm doing process auditing. Our organization, SNC, is AS9100, so we conduct internal audits to ensure that we are meeting the requirements to the AS9100 standards. And I also help manage the audits when we have our external AS9100 auditors come to verify our certification. And I am currently an ETQ administrator. So for myself, my audit story is that for software licenses, we always had to have customer relations and understand the terms of the contracts that they had, whether it was with the customer we were working for, or if I was working internally at the software company. I've done supply chain audits. I was the third-party representative for our client. And during that process, I always was the person who determined who was going to be audited. I coordinated with the other offices, a lot of them outside of the US, provided trainings to those teams. I was the representative that pulled and analyzed all of the data, and then reviewed and presented the final results to our customer. at S&C for processing, for doing process audits. We also always make sure that the team understands that we're all here for S&C, and our main goal is to work together to ensure that when our external auditors come in, that we are meeting the requirements, as that is a big part of our contracts with the government. So we maintain relationships with other departments. We work with those external auditors to ensure that we are compliant, and then we evaluate effectiveness of the processes, and write and manage the corrective actions. Jennifer, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, thank you, Crystal and Kendra. I really appreciate you sharing your experiences on how you prepare for audits. Everyone joining us today got some great nuggets of information. So no matter what stage in the product ecosystem a product is in, an audit can happen during any one of these steps. ETQ Reliance actively manages quality in the entire product lifecycle, benefiting you in several ways. So as I mentioned previously, our customers experienced reduced rework and waste, improved process efficiency, also increased productivity, and they avoided recalls and product liability claims. And finally, supporting the audits that can take place at each step. As you can see, with ETQ, you are in good company. We serve hundreds of customers of all shapes and sizes across many industries. We apply learnings and best practices from across all of these industries to provide a unique value to all of our customers. For over 30 years, ETQ has empowered quality champions to use quality management as a catalyst for business success. We offer a flexible, scalable, easy-to-use QMS solution that's purpose-built to connect quality processes to all areas of your organization. We aim to be a trusted advisor to our customers, helping to guide them along their quality journey. Also, we're a part of Hexagon, a global leader in sensor, software, and autonomous manufacturing solutions. So we've now reached the point in our webinar for some Q&A. So I'm going to go ahead and check out our little box. Let's see. One question that we have, what is the percentage of internal audits versus external audits? And for external audits, what is the percentage spread across customers, regulatory bodies, and other audit types? Crystal or Kendra, would either one of you be interested in taking that on, or maybe both? Maybe Crystal, you'd like to go first?
Sure. So I'm just rereading a percentage of internal versus external. So for us, we have a small amount of internal audits at our facility. It's not to say that Intertech as a whole doesn't do a lot more, but for our facility, we are doing internal audits probably once per year, but we divide it up per lab and do one lab each quarter. And then external, we have a lot more in comparison. So probably, I would say anywhere around 20 to 30 external audits that we're servicing. And what's the spread across customers and regulatory bodies? So primarily those external audits are mostly customers. I think once a year, it's usually a regulatory body, or we have our ISO certification as well. So I hope that answered your question.
Great, thank you. Kendra, do you have anything to add?
I don't have it by percentage, but internally, we as an organization continue to audit throughout the year on our internal processes to ensure that each area of the business is meeting the requirements. And then yearly, we typically have our AS9100 audit checked, and then the years that we are up for recertification, we'll have a full audit. We do have customer audits depending on what their need is, as a lot of our customers are the government, so they'll come in as needed. And then we do have a team, another team separate from myself, that does audit our suppliers to ensure quality. So in terms of a percentage, I don't have that, but there's continual audits throughout the organization.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, because I think that that helps with keeping that closed circle loop that we have talked earlier about, the product life cycle, where you can be audited any step. And so if it's always continuous, you're always prepared. Um, I think this is a nice question for either one of you. Can you give an example, or maybe you have a little story of maybe a surprised finding that you came across during an audit?
So a surprise finding that we came across during an audit.
Or significant or surprise finding?
So with those, we would manage those by entering them into ETQ, into the CAPA portal. It would be linked back to an inspection if that's what kicked it off, or if it was an ad hoc observation that was brought to quality assurance's attention, we would just enter it as a CAPA with some kind of action to make sure that it's on in front of all of our view.
I agree, Crystal. When things are found ad hoc at our organization, CAPA is written and then it is reviewed, and we actually have a field for a risk matrix. So once the risk is determined, if it is a higher risk and leadership determines that it is a larger enough finding, then we will implement a audit. We do our audit planning at the beginning of the year to ensure that we're covering all of the basis of the AS 9100, all of the clauses. But if something does come up ad hoc, it will be added throughout the year if it's determined to be beneficial enough or have enough ROI for the business. Otherwise, it's handled as a CAPA.
Okay, great. And I think we have a question that came in also, I think that ties into that. So they're asking, do you think preparation for an audit is the most important phase in the audit cycle?
I would say,
yeah, sorry, Kendra.
I would say that all phases, we do a lot of pre-planning. Each year, we look at the CAPAs or the risks that were identified the previous year, and then we schedule our audits for the following year based on that. But we also touch on those points where we know that we've had findings or we know that we've had issues. So I would say almost all of the phases of our audits are important. Planning up front is definitely important. We always are in constant communications with the teams to let them know what to expect, what we're auditing to, as we are all part of S&C, and we want to make sure that people know we're not coming after them. We're not the IRS. We're not evil auditors. Even in previous lives that I've had, it's always been that upfront, making sure that they understand what we're looking at and why we're going to be doing that. So I think communication is the biggest part of the audit process from my perspective. Go ahead, Crystal. I didn't mean to.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I 100% agree with you. It's hard to pick a certain phase. I mean, certainly preparation, it reduces, I think, a lot of our risk areas that you might be concerned about up front. It hopefully makes an audit run smoother. If we can predict or know where some of our areas are that we need to focus on. And it also brings attention to a lot of the internal partners that need to make sure that they deliver their parts of any actions or organizing any documents that need to be updated. And hopefully that all of us are working as one continuous wheel to deliver the audit to whoever is auditing us, internal, external, etc.
That's great. And so we have another question that came in from Thomas, and I think this was on part of your presentation, Kendra. The last item where you stated that you're measuring the effectiveness of a process that you're auditing. They were curious to know how is this when reported and followed up?
So when we utilize ETQ and a corrective action is written, there is an effectiveness check. So the team will go through and they will do containment of the corrective action. Then they will implement they'll do root cause to kind of dig down into what caused the issue. And then they'll implement an action plan, complete those actions. And then after a period of time, we will go in and we will review the effectiveness. So we'll recheck the data. A lot of times we have metrics and we'll check to see if those metrics have improved. And we'll talk to the teams to see if the updated process or the fixes have been implemented. So our leadership is continually looking at how the effectiveness of the phases of our projects themselves are being done, and we go back and we reevaluate that as part of the corrective action.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. So we have a question that came in from, and I apologize if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly, Vuvu Maneska. They're wondering, is a CAPA applicable for every type of internal audit since some are weekly, monthly, and even annually?
I can take that. So for our organization, we use CAPA if it's actually a finding against one of the standards listed in the AS 9100. If it is something that is a nice to have, or maybe it's a recommendation for the team, but doesn't have a large impact or doesn't affect the quality of the work, we will list it as a recommendation. And then we do document that in ETQ, and it is tracked on how they turned around and did a fix or did some sort of implementation for the recommendation. But we do not use CAPA on every audit if there isn't any significant findings.
Sure. Crystal, is there anything you would like to add to that?
No, I think Kendra's answer was perfect. Yeah, we're very much the same.
Great. So we have a question from Mohammed. How relevant is an audit becomes if it's frequent, meaning once in a quarter? So I think that if I understand that correctly, if you're frequently having audits, do they lose their relevance? If I'm understanding that correctly.
So our requirements for the timeline of an audit, typically we do them yearly. Hitting each of those standards within the AS 9100. But there are some audits that were required, whether it's by the FAA or whether it's by a government organization, that tend to be quarterly, or they tend to even be monthly, depending on what the type of audit. So one, it determines on what your customer requirement is. Other than that, we do them annually, and we focus on the things that we have struggled with the past, but we do ensure that we're covering all of the requirements, as that is a big push for our organization, that we are AS 9100 certified. So the teams understand this from an internal perspective, that again, to keep our contracts, to maintain the government being happy, we do them typically, they're annually.
And for us, the internal audits that we're doing, it's the annual inspection. So we just divide up our labs per quarter so that we're always auditing some area of our building. And then our client audits, I mean, those we can't control. Like they're just coming in when they need to come in. And they are typically inspecting us based on our regulations in the pharma space, the good manufacturing practices. And so they follow more of a general framework every time, and there are specific customer pieces that they're coming to inspect. So I think all of it is relevant and helpful because it always, again, makes us audit ready every single time.
So we have a question from Cynthia. I think this is a little bit interesting. How do you ensure internal auditors are impartial and can be objective?
Do you want me to? I can
Go
start
ahead,
with that.
Crystal. Okay.
And so for us, what we do, we train our internal auditors, which are comprised of different levels within the company, and different areas of the company, but we do not allow our internal auditors to inspect their own areas. So hopefully that leads to some of the impartiality. Hopefully that answers your question.
I agree with what you said, Crystal. And another thing that we do is we have a team of auditors. So we try to switch around so that there's a different perspective. Everyone on our team kind of has a different way of how they approach the information or look at the information. We ensure that we're super familiar with the way that the program is supposed to work. We have a lot of conversations. It's a lot of listening and understanding what the teams are doing. And then myself and our team will switch around the audits typically yearly so that there's a different set of eyes looking on that process, and it's not the same person over and over, to allow for that impartiality.
Yeah, totally agree.
Oh, thank you. We talked a little bit about suppliers. So if each of you don't mind sharing, what sort of preparations do you expect from your suppliers before an audit?
So, I mean, we expect, I guess, the same level that we would provide to our customers. So we expect our suppliers, when we come to inspect them, that they have procedures in order, readily available, training records accessible, that our data and records are easily accessible, legible, and that anyone that we need available to us to answer questions is also accessible. So it's really just the same courtesy that we would provide to our customers coming in.
I agree. We have a separate team that manages the relationships with the suppliers directly. They also work a lot with our procurement staff. So again, it's the same thing. They have to be certified in certain aspects depending on what they're providing. So along with what you said, Crystal, I agree.
That's helpful. Thank you. So we had a question come in from John, and he's curious to know, what is your experience with managing multiple standards? So for example, ISO 901, 21 CRF, and Annex 1 within a single QMS.
So for us, yes, that can be challenging. I know primarily for us, the 21 CFR, we start off with, and we try to align each of those regulations and standards when designing the ETQ setup and framework when we were configuring it. And so in some areas, we make more strict depending on the standard or the regulation. It's really, because our highest level here is that that GMP requirement, we do make things a lot more stricter. And then in the cases of ISO, the opportunities when there are will utilize those standards. So I know it can be challenging.
Yeah.
For our organization up front, we're having conversations with the other teams that
Mhm.
may manage the FARs or the DFARs. And we ensure that anything that we can cover that may cover their requirements, we have that aligned in ETQ as well. And when we list out the requirements, a lot of times our corporate compliance team or our operations compliance team will go in, look at the audits that we have scheduled and add their requirements if it's something that covers it. Otherwise, they'll conduct their own audit for that requirement.
Okay. So we talked a little bit about training as well. So a question came in on what kind of training do you provide to a new internal auditor?
So for us, what we do is we provide them an ASQ internal auditor training externally. And then we provide them internal training with our processes of how we manage it here. And then the internal auditor is mentored on their first inspection. And we sit down and review everything at conclusion with our lead auditor as well. So there's constantly that feedback coming into the new auditor.
For our organization, if someone is not already AS 9100 lead auditor, they are sent to that training before they can sit in the lead auditor seat, and their audits are also monitored and trained upon as they're doing them. Everyone currently on our team and other individuals within our organization are AS 9100 internal auditor certified. So if there's any questions, our team meets every day to talk about any issues that arise. So we're constantly working together and spreading our knowledge around. So
That's great. So we had a question come in from Scott. And I think this is good too to share with other people on the call who might be in this situation. So Scott says they're working on an initial ISO 901 certification. Our quality metrics have just begun to be tracked. So it's hard to derive audits from that. We don't have any previous audits, NCs, or CAPAs to work off of. In the absence of much data, are there a few internal audit areas you would recommend for some first audits? So getting started. So there isn't a lot of historical data to work off of. Do you have any recommendations for someone to get started with their first audit?
I would primarily recommend focusing on documents and control of them, making sure that they're up to date and accurate, training records, and your physical environment and space, making sure that processes and procedures are being followed.
100% agree.
Yes, documentation and training, very important. Let's see. Just scanning here real quick. Well, this is kind of interesting. So Kara was asking if there's guidelines for audit readiness. I know you can find lots of great information on the ISO's website, where I found the quote at the top of this webinar. But I don't know, Kendall or Kendra, Crystal, if you have any other recommendations where people could find guidelines for being audit ready.
I don't know. I'm sure there's a lot of audit readiness. I think Crystal covered a lot of that is just having your documentation, kind of knowing where it is. One thing that we did at a previous client of mine is one of the things that we did is we did mock audits with people that were going to be interviewed by auditors. Remember that you can always say, I'm not sure, let me get back to you if you don't know the answer, and then just answer the question that you're being asked. I kind of think of it as like a police interrogation. Give them the information that they're asking for, but if you're not 100% sure or you don't know, then direct them to someone who does or who can provide a better answer. It's okay to say, I'm not sure. We also instructed them, to make sure that to keep hallway conversations to a minimum. Your external auditors or whoever you have on site doesn't need to be hearing the latest water cooler gossip. So just alert the teams that people are going to be on site that are auditing you, and then it's okay to say that you don't know the answer and you'll get back to them.
Yeah, I would agree with Kendra. Yep, 100%.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you taking the time, Kendra and Crystal, to share your experience with us. And for everyone who joined us on the call, I believe a link to a recording of this will be sent out to everyone afterwards. And we will, if we didn't get to your question, we will try to get those answered and get back in touch with you. So in the meantime, enjoy the rest of your day and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.